We looked just to see in his past, in the not too distant past, he appeared or was cited by NBC, NPR, Newsweek. I could go on.
Yeah.
He's been treated as a credible authority by these mainstream news organizations in the past, but now that he's alleging he can testify to corruption by Joe and Hunter Biden and can provide the specifics on it, and had a meeting with 6 officials from the FBI and DOJ in Cyprus in 2019, completely ignoring. And it's not just, I know they hate the Post, but as you point out, the guy's on videotape. That was what was so extraordinary about your report yesterday. Yes, you wrote it up, but you had the link. I watched it myself. He's on camera detailing the whole thing. And it's one thing you can cover it skeptically. Maybe you say, I don't know, I question the motives. Fine. Nothing. They're not interested.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And look, you have to, and I did up front say this man is a fugitive. He's on the run. He filmed that video in some undisclosed location because he skipped bail in Cyprus. And now his explanation for that is that he says that he was only charged with gun running charges, which he says are ridiculous and he's innocent of, and FARA violations, being a foreign agent violations. He says he was only charged to keep him quiet. And it is true. I have confirmed with James Comer, the head of the Oversight Committee, that they were talking to Gal Luft, the Israeli professor, and before he was arrested, after he was arrested, before he skipped bail, and wanted him to be a witness. And James Comer also told me this week they would still like him to be a witness if they can figure out some way of doing that. So his story seems to check out in all sorts of ways. And as you said, he's already given his allegations to the government in March of 2019. They flew 4 FBI agents and 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York to Brussels to meet with him for 2 days for something like 14 hours to get his information. So obviously they thought he was a credible witness then. They must have treated him seriously to spend so much time and so much money on that episode. And yet they never seemed to follow up on it. They never seemed to investigate it. His information was buried. They didn't interview, for instance, he mentioned Rob Walker, who was a Biden family associate, that he said all the money from this Chinese company was being funneled through. Well, it took the FBI 21 months to actually interview Rob Walker, and only because they'd been told by multiple other sources that Rob Walker was the guy who the Chinese were paying and who was then funneling dribs and drabs to at least 3 family members. We know about $1 million came to the Biden family that way because James Comer now has the bank accounts and the bank statements, and he's made them public.
Is it possible, because this was Trump's DOJ that went out to Brussels and met with him in March of 19, is it possible they met with him and said, this guy's full of it? They did check it out internally that, we would know nothing about, and said, we don't believe him, let's move on. And we actually might think he's a criminal, let's pursue that. And then he got arrested, this past spring. And the reason they didn't follow up on the allegations about Hunter and Joe is that to the extent they kicked those tires, they deflated quickly.
Yes, and that's certainly something I always keep in mind with all of this. You can go the conspiracy route, or you can try and say, well, let's look at this as if there's no corruption inside the DOJ and the FBI. Maybe they did track down everything and they found that there was nothing to it. Unfortunately, the pattern that we saw with Gal Luft has been repeated across about 5 different sources, whistleblowers or whatever you want to call them, witnesses who have told the DOJ, the FBI, the authorities about allegations, about evidence to do with bribery of the Biden family by multiple different countries. So Gal Luft is talking about China. We have others who've talked about Ukraine. including Bud Cummins, who's was the U.S. Attorney for Arkansas, and he was in private practice when someone came to him with some allegations about money going to the Bidens that was for a bribe, for a quid pro quo from Ukraine. He brought that again to Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York at that time, and he says that was never investigated. He was never followed up. But what he did find a couple of years later, when he was informed by Apple, was that the FBI had gone after his cloud, had a surveillance warrant. They were spying on all his text messages and emails. And, that's a pattern we saw also with Rudy Giuliani. Unbeknownst to Rudy Giuliani, he also was being spied on by the FBI from pretty much the moment that he became Donald Trump's personal attorney, right through to the election. And during 2020, when he received the information from the laptop repair shop owner that he had the laptop and that it had a whole lot of incriminating material on there, especially about Ukraine, the FBI had full access to that email from John Paul MacIsaac to Rudy Giuliani, because they were spying on his cloud. And the FBI also would have had access to my communications with Rudy Giuliani during that period, which would have led anyone to see them, to know that the New York Post was going to publish imminently. How far do you want to go? You could even say, well, the FBI had the laptop since December 2019, and they went to the social media companies and pre-bunked our story, saying that expect a Russian disinformation hack and dump before, in October, before the election, probably to do with Hunter Biden. So this whole pattern, Tony Bobulinski, the Ukraine witness that is the subject of that FD 1023 form that the
FBI tried to keep from Congress.
That's right. So, Gal Luft is one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. You could maybe dismiss him, say he's just a fugitive. But what happened to him has happened to at least 4 or 5 other people.
You did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now that decision to do the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Think of it. It's a pot of money already allocated, sitting there for those who qualify. Government funds are available right now to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. The program is, of course, complicated. They never make it easy on you, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax pros at covidtaxrelief.org. You don't have to pay a thing up front. These guys are going to do all the work for you, and then if they get cash for you, they share a percentage of it. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify. Even if you took a PPP loan, you could qualify, and even if you had increases in your sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.